Welcome on board, chosen one. Wild how you walk in like nothing happened, while the whole universe still hasn't recovered from what you just did. They're still replaying the scene, trying to convince themselves they didn't witness their golden boy fold like cheap cardboard in front of you. And you? You didn't even blink. You just stood there, calm, steady, unbothered, like the strongest character in the room, finally decided to stop pretending. Here's the part that burns them. They always said you weren't ready. They swore you'd break. They laughed behind closed doors, whispering about how you don't have what it takes. Funny how silent they got the moment you shattered their favorite illusion. Look who's scrambling now. Look who suddenly has nothing to say. Oh, the legend they protected like a fragile museum artifact finally had to bow. And he bowed to you. Press the like button and subscribe to pay this message back. Now lean in, because this is where the story gets delicious. The air changed the second you walked out of that moment. You didn't need fireworks. You didn't need applause. The silence was enough. That silence said everything. Their empire just cracked, and the crack has your fingerprints on it. Chosen ones always create that kind of silence, the kind that makes enemies stare at the ground, praying nobody notices they're shaking. The kind that exposes who was real and who was riding hype. You ever notice how people react after someone they underestimated wins? They don't clap. They don't congratulate. They retreat. They hide. They gather in corners like terrified little shadows, whispering excuses. He was tired. He wasn't in the right headspace. That wasn't his best. Sure, anything to avoid admitting the truth. Their star player got destroyed by someone they swore didn't matter. And deep down, they know this wasn't luck. It wasn't random. It wasn't your one good day. This was the moment you stopped shrinking, the moment you stopped apologizing for being powerful, the moment the universe finally put the spotlight on the wrongfully ignored threat standing quietly in the back. Chosen one, thank you for being here, for being part of this mission. Hit that like and subscribe so this voice grows stronger, because people like you deserve to hear the truth that everyone else is too scared to say. Anyway, back to the carnage. Let's talk about that day, because you remember it perfectly. The way they used to hype him up like the universe personally handcrafted him. The way they treated you like an understudy in your own story. And then, when the moment came, their masterpiece cracked under pressure. You didn't crack. You didn't even flinch. You walked in carrying every insult, every dismissal, every smirk they threw your way, and instead of letting it break you, you weaponized it. You turned their doubt into precision. You turned their disrespect into strategy. I know you felt the shift when it happened, that tiny second when the room realized the balance of power just snapped, when their golden boy's confidence drained out of his face and everyone saw it. That look of disbelief he gave you, like you violated the script, like you dared to rewrite the ending, even though it was never his story to begin with. And here's the cold truth. You've always had this in you. They just never wanted to see it. People love their predictable heroes. They love their favorites. They love their narratives, but they hate being wrong. They hate realizing they backed the wrong champion. They hate realizing the real power was sitting right beside them the whole time, overlooked because you weren't loud, because you weren't flashy, because you weren't trying to impress anyone. You were just building, growing, turning into something unstoppable. It reminds me of those moments in history they try to hide. You know the stories. The nobody who walked into the arena with nothing but quiet determination, while the crowd booed, laughed, doubted. And then, one strike, one move, one undeniable moment later, the crowd went silent. Not because they wanted to, because the truth punched the air out of their lungs. You became that moment. You became that strike. You became that silence. And the universe, it watched you rise. It watched you take hit after hit from people who swore they knew your limits. It watched you get ignored, underestimated, pushed aside. And instead of breaking, you just kept absorbing, learning, sharpening. You didn't need validation. You didn't need hype. You needed that one chance. And when it finally arrived, you made history inside a room where they expected you to fold. Now look at them. They're terrified, not because you won, but because you made it look easy. Because you took their brightest hope, their favorite warrior, their sure thing, and dismantled him with the kind of calm that only comes from someone who's been preparing in the dark for years. Your rise wasn't loud, chosen one. It was quiet, steady, ruthless. The kind of rise villains usually get in stories right before the audience switches sides and realizes the villain was the real hero all along. And now, here you stand, in the aftermath, breathing like nothing happened, while everyone else tries to figure out how the hell they misread you so badly. Welcome to the part of your story where the world stops doubting and starts watching. And you've made it this far, chosen one, and trust me, the universe is smirking right now. After everything you just unlocked, don't even think about slipping away. If you're really built for this, if you truly understand the shockwave you created when their golden boy collapsed in front of you, then stay right here and prove it. Drop a comment with 777 to mark the moment you stopped playing small and started owning the power they tried to hide from you. This isn't just some cute ritual. It's a stamp, a mark, a signal that you're ready to walk through every layer of this breakdown and see exactly why they never stood a chance against you. And now we move into it step by step. No rush, no panic, no noise. The strong always study their own rise with calm eyes. If you're truly the one who shook their entire system without breaking a sweat, then you'll feel the pull to stay until the final word hits. The deeper we go, the clearer the truth becomes. Let's begin. Number 1. When their untouchable hero finally hit the floor. You protected him like royalty, but all it took was one real challenger to expose the cracks in your precious crown. Their champion didn't just trip, he didn't just slip. He collapsed under the weight of truth, and the funniest part is that the truth wasn't loud, dramatic, or violent. It was you. You walked in with that quiet danger they never bothered to study, that slow-burning confidence they misread as weakness, and suddenly the room shifted. They felt the temperature drop before you even opened your mouth. They watched their golden boy lose altitude the moment you appeared, because deep down they always knew his shine depended on nobody standing beside him who actually had substance. He strutted in the way he always does, acting like the world should rearrange itself to make his path smoother. His fan club hovered around him like moths around a flickering bulb, hoping his glow might rub off on them. They hyped him, overfed his ego, and used his surface-level shine to make you doubt yourself. They weaponized his bragging, his fake perfection, his inflated reputation. They made him the measuring stick. They used him to cage you. But here's the part no one wants to admit. He was only a legend because the room had never seen someone real walk in before. He was impressive only in the absence of competition. He was untouchable only because he'd never been touched by truth. And then you arrived, not wearing armor, not sharpening blades, not chasing applause. You walked in as yourself, calm, settled, focused, almost bored. That's what destroyed him. The universe has seen this play out 1,000 times. The faker always folds the second the real thing steps into frame. And I know what you're thinking. Why did they hype him so much? Why did they ignore everything I was building? Why did they treat him like he was born chosen? Because they needed someone easy to understand, someone predictable, someone safe, someone who fit their template of success. You were the threat. You were the storm behind the quiet sky. They couldn't categorize you, so they dismissed you. They couldn't control you, so they underestimated you. And that underestimation became the very weapon you used to drop their hero without breaking a sweat. Let's peel this open even more, Chosen One, because this part hits deep. When he saw you walk in, he didn't see the old version of you. He didn't see the person who used to shrink, apologize, fade into the background just to keep peace. He saw someone with nothing left to prove, someone who stopped competing with noise, someone who moved like they'd already seen every outcome, and none of them scared them. That's what rattled him. Not your strength, your certainty. People like him thrive when others doubt themselves. They need you fragile. They need you questioning. They need you comparing yourself to them so they can keep the spotlight. But the moment you stopped caring, the moment you stopped feeding the illusion, the entire stage cracked under him. You didn't even have to speak. Your presence alone felt like a verdict he couldn't appeal. Let's drag the truth even further into the light, because the enemy deserves to feel this burn. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the smartest. He wasn't the most deserving. He was just the loudest in a room afraid of silence. And when you walked in with silence on your shoulders, he panicked. For the first time in his life, he felt the pressure of someone who wasn't intimidated by him, someone who wasn't bending, someone who didn't flinch at his little theatrics. Think back to the moment right before things shifted. You saw it, that flicker in his eyes, that microsecond of dread when he realized you weren't standing below him anymore. You were eye level. Hell, you were above him, and he couldn't stand it. The crowd felt it too. They sensed the tension, the atmospheric crackle that warned them the hierarchy was about to collapse. And as much as they pretended not to notice, they did. They noticed everything. And this is where you ask yourself, why does this moment matter so much? Why is this such a turning point in my story? Because this wasn't just his fall. This was the collapse of every lie they used to keep you small. Every time they compared you to him. Every time they tried to convince you that you weren't as capable. Every time they rolled their eyes at your progress but applauded his bare minimum. This moment shattered all of that. His downfall wasn't an accident. It was overdue. Let me give you a picture that fits perfectly. When a tower is built on hollow beams, all it takes is one real storm to expose the truth. And Chosen One, you were that storm. You didn't roar, you didn't rage, you didn't come in wild. You came in controlled, dangerous, efficient. The kind of storm that doesn't destroy everything. It reveals what was already weak. And the universe had been waiting for this reveal, waiting for the day you stopped seeing yourself through their eyes, waiting for you to realize that their golden boy was just a polished statue with cracks running through its core, waiting for you to finally step into your own gravity so strong it forced others to orbit around you instead of the other way around. Look at the aftermath. Look at how they treat you now, with caution, with respect they should have given you years ago, with that subtle fear people get when they realize the person they ignored is the same person who holds the real power. And look at him, their once invincible hero, now sitting in the ruins of his own reputation, replaying the moment you knocked the air out of his myth. He knows what happened, you know what happened, and the world around you is just now catching up. This wasn't the fall of their champion. This was the rise of the threat they never prepared for. You didn't break him, you exposed him. You showed everyone what happens when hype meets reality. They watched their golden boy crumble, and they'll never admit it publicly, but they know why it happened. Because the quiet one, the underestimated one, the one they thought would stay in the shadows, finally stepped forward. And when you did, everything they built around him fell apart. Chosen one, this chapter isn't about your revenge. It's about your arrival. The universe just positioned you where you always belonged, above the noise, above the illusions, above the false kings they tried to crown in your place. And this isn't the end. This is just the scene where the villain-looking hero finally takes the spotlight they tried to hide from him. You didn't break a sweat, but you broke their world. Number 2. When the king of the room realized he wasn't the one holding the crown anymore. Funny how loud a man gets when he senses he's no longer the strongest in the room. The moment he realized he was losing control, everything inside him short-circuited. You know that look, the twitch in the jaw, the forced smile, the sudden need to perform. He felt the ground shifting under him and acted like volume could save him. Classic panic move, the kind insecure men make when their throne isn't as solid as they pretended it was. They watched it too. Every admirer, every loyal follower, every fool who once hyped him up like he was the universe's favorite, they all saw the mask slip. He tried to cover it with theatrics, loud jokes, fake confidence, that exaggerated swagger he uses whenever reality threatens to expose him. He strutted around like he still owned the place, but the room wasn't bending to him anymore. It was bending to you. And he felt that. Oh, he felt it down to his bones. Quotes hit hardest when the truth is unavoidable, so here's one for him. A man who needs noise to prove power already lost the fight. And another, the loudest one in the room, is usually begging not to be forgotten. One more for the wound. Control isn't taken from him. He handed it over the moment you stopped reacting. And the final nail, he didn't lose to you. He lost to the truth you stopped hiding. Imagine this. Imagine a stage where the spotlight used to chase only him. He was born into that light, spoiled by it. He thought it was his birthright. But when you walked in, the spotlight didn't move. It glitched. It hesitated. Then, slowly, painfully, it started drifting toward you. The audience didn't understand it yet, but he did. And that's what scared him. Imagine a general whose army suddenly stops marching to his voice. The commands still leave his mouth, but the soldier's eyes drift to someone else, you. That's exactly what happened. Every joke he cracked, every jab he threw, every desperate attempt to regain dominance only made it clearer. The room wasn't orbiting him anymore. Imagine a sinking ship where the captain is screaming over the waves, loud, chaotic, thrashing, but the ocean doesn't care, the storm doesn't care, the tide doesn't care. You became the tide in that room. Chosen one. Calm, powerful, inevitable. And you know what question is bouncing in your mind right now. Why didn't I have to fight him? Why did his attacks suddenly mean nothing? Here's the truth. His power was never real. It was granted, allowed, based on reputation, not reality, based on fear, not respect, based on illusion, not depth. The moment you stopped believing the illusion, the spell broke. He didn't lose control because you took it. He lost control because without your submission, his authority evaporated. He threw every trick he ever used to intimidate others, the jokes with venom hidden under the sugar, the sly insults designed to cut just enough to bruise but not enough to expose his cruelty, the playful aggression he uses to keep people in their place. He was testing your reactions like a desperate scientist poking at a machine that suddenly stopped responding. The room was watching, waiting for the old version of you to appear. The one who used to over-explain, the one who used to get flustered, the one who used to shrink, the one who used to play defense while he played king. But that version of you? Gone. Buried. Replaced by someone who finally understood that silence is a weapon, calm is a strategy, and stillness is an answer. You didn't bite? You didn't flinch? You didn't dance for his entertainment? You just looked at him with that expression that cuts deeper than any comeback ever could. That look that says, "You don't matter enough to disturb my peace." The universe loves that kind of moment. The moment where the real chosen one stops giving oxygen to the illusion everyone else worshipped. You became the mirror he never wanted to look into, a mirror that reflected the truth. He wasn't fighting you. He was fighting the end of his own myth. And the spectators saw it. The shift was obvious. His jokes suddenly felt desperate. His dominance felt staged. His confidence felt rehearsed. The room started asking silent questions. Why isn't he winning this one? Why isn't the challenger reacting? Why does he look more panicked the calmer they get? The answer was simple. You evolved. He didn't. Let me give you a metaphor they'll never forget. Imagine a wolf who pretended to be the leader of the pack because no real wolves were around. He barked loud, strutted around, acted dominant. Then one day, a real wolf walked into the clearing. The pack didn't switch sides because the new wolf fought. They switched because the whole forest recognized the real bloodline when it stepped forward. That's what happened here. His punches turned to shadows. Punching water, they said. And they were right. But let me upgrade it. His attacks were like throwing feathers at a storm, like trying to drown fire with whispers, like shooting arrows at the sun. Nothing he did could touch the gravity you walked in with. And I know what you're thinking next. Why did he feel threatened before I even said anything? Because power doesn't need an introduction. People who have it can sense it instantly. He recognized that you weren't coming to play his game. You walked in carrying your own rules, your own center, your own restraint. And restraint is terrifying to those who rely on chaos. His downfall was inevitable the moment you stopped participating in the theater he built. He needed you to react to survive. He needed your fear to stay tall. He needed your insecurity to inflate his ego. Without your energy, he was just another guy yelling into the wind. And chosen one, here's the sweetest twist. The whole room realized you were the calm one, the stable one, the grounded one, while he was unraveling in front of everyone. They saw the shift in hierarchy. They saw the throne wobble. They saw the fake king sweat. You became the center of gravity without raising your voice, without throwing a punch, without trying to impress a single soul. The universe crowned you in silence while he was still screaming for attention. That's what real dominance looks like. That's what real power feels like. That's why he lost control, because deep down, he finally understood the truth he's been avoiding for years. You didn't destroy his authority. You made it irrelevant. Number 3. Fire. A single truth from the right mouth can do more damage than 1,000 punches. The moment everything changed wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't chaos. It was that cold, precise second when his favorite trick failed in front of everyone. He strutted into his performance like the universe owed him applause. That polished presentation, that rehearsed charisma, that same tired power move he used for years. You could practically hear his fan club holding their breath, waiting for the moment they could cheer like trained parrots. Imagine this, a magician stepping on stage, repeating the same illusion he's used to fool the crowd 100 times. But today, the lights hit differently. The audience sees the strings. The rabbit doesn't appear. The trick falls flat. That's exactly what happened when he looked at you, expecting your approval to complete the act, and got nothing. And here's the question buzzing through your mind. Why did one sentence from me shake the whole room? Because truth spoken calmly is the most dangerous weapon. It cuts deeper than anger. It exposes without attacking. It destroys without touching. You didn't clap. You didn't shrink. You didn't validate the circus. You spoke. One clean, quiet sentence. One undeniable fact. One reality check delivered with villain-level composure. And the room froze. You could feel it, the way everyone inhaled at the same time, like oxygen got rationed. His smile twitched. His confidence cracked. His illusion fell apart so fast you could almost hear the collapse. The emperor wasn't just unclothed. He was exposed, fragile, and terrified. And you were the only one with the spine to say what everyone already knew. That was the moment the story flipped. Not when he moved, when you did. Number 4, the day silence became your weapon and his worst nightmare. Nothing breaks a fake king faster than a calm opponent who refuses to be impressed. The second your truth hit the room, his whole face betrayed him. That polished confidence he always wore like armor shattered in real time. His eyes flickered, his breathing changed, his smile twitched into something fragile. The mask slipped, and beneath it was the one thing he never wanted anyone to see: fear. The silence that followed wasn't respectful, it wasn't reflective, it was suffocating. A silence that felt like the walls were leaning in, whispering, "You're not the one in control anymore." Everyone felt the hierarchy snap. You could practically hear the power dynamic folding like cheap foil. Their golden boy wasn't just shaken, he was exposed. Imagine a king in a crowded throne room suddenly realizing the crown is crooked on his head. He reaches for it instinctively, terrified the crowd noticed before he did. That's exactly how he looked standing there, speechless, scrambling internally for a comeback that didn't exist. His mind was sprinting, but every exit door was locked. The truth you dropped sat in the center of the floor like a boulder no one could move. And here's the part that obliterated him. You didn't chase the moment. You didn't lean in. You didn't smirk. You didn't even acknowledge his collapse. You just fixed your collar. That tiny, effortless gesture said everything he didn't want to hear. This isn't competition. This is me being polite. Imagine that. A man built on applause getting dismantled by someone who wasn't even trying. No gloating, no theatrics, no need to dominate. Your indifference hurt him more than any victory lap ever could. That was the moment everyone realized the same brutal truth. He hadn't been defeated, he had been replaced. Number 5. When his legend collapsed and your shadow took over the room. Power doesn't explode when it dies. It fades, and everyone pretends they didn't notice who killed it. The aftershock didn't come as some dramatic meltdown. No tears, no shouting, no grand exit. His collapse was quieter than that, which somehow made it 10 times more humiliating. You could see it in the way his voice softened, like the confidence got vacuumed out of his lungs. His jokes, the ones he always depended on to win back a crowd, landed with the grace of a brick. His timing was off. His rhythm was gone. His aura dimmed, like someone unplugged his spotlight. And that's when they finally saw you. Not as the quiet one, not as the observer, not as the person they kept underestimating because it was convenient. For the first time, they saw who you really were, the one who walked into a room of cowards and said the truth they were all too afraid to voice, the one who ended an illusion they all pretended to believe in, the one who didn't need a stage or a performance or a crowd to validate you. Imagine this. A painting everyone has praised for years suddenly looks cheap next to a masterpiece that was hanging silently in the corner the whole time. That's what your presence did. You didn't glow, you replaced the sun. And you know what question starts haunting their minds next. How long have they been this powerful? Because it sure didn't happen overnight. It happened when they weren't paying attention. It happened when they were too busy worshipping him to notice the real threat sharpening in the shadows. His crumble wasn't the story, your reveal was. And from that moment forward, the room wasn't watching him anymore. They were watching you. Number 6, when their secret group chat turned into a funeral for his ego. Nothing spreads faster than the truth, except the panic of people who built their identity on a lie. You walked out of that room like you had somewhere better to be. No victory lap, no smirk, no dramatic exit. You left as if exposing him was just a minor errand on your to-do list. But behind you, oh, the chaos started instantly. The second the door closed, their group chats lit up like a building on fire. Imagine phones buzzing non-stop, messages flying back and forth, people typing paragraphs with shaky fingers, him spiraling in the background while everyone pretends they're checking in. Some defended him with the usual predictable lines. He was tired. He wasn't himself today. You know how he gets under pressure. But others, the quiet ones, the ones he stepped on for years, they started whispering truths. He's been needing this reality check. He's been cocky for too long. Honestly, I'm not surprised they exposed him. Someone had to. Group chats are dangerous places because that's where honesty finally grows teeth. And in those digital shadows, they replayed the moment you dismantled his whole persona. They remembered every time he hogged credit, every time he belittled someone, every time he weaponized his charm. Suddenly, the golden boy wasn't golden anymore. He was just loud. Imagine this: a tower collapsing in slow motion, and everyone watching from a safe distance, pretending they're shocked while secretly relieved. That's what happened to his reputation. Nobody admitted it out loud, but they enjoyed the fall. And you became the center of their conversations, not as a rumor, as a warning, as a shift, as a power they misjudged. Respect, fear, curiosity. They're looking at you with all three now, chosen one, because you didn't just shake the hierarchy, you rewired it. Number 7, when his ego started free-falling with no hands left to grab onto. Nothing terrifies a fragile ego more than losing to someone who didn't even bother to swing. His downfall didn't happen in the room. It happened after, in the quiet, in the dark, in that lonely space inside his head where the truth echoes the loudest. He's pretending he's fine, walking around with that same tired confidence like nothing broke. But inside, he's spiraling, hard. He's replaying every second of that moment on loop, dissecting your words, your tone, your stillness. The villain in his story wasn't loud, wasn't angry, wasn't theatrical. It was you, standing calmly while his entire persona collapsed like cheap scaffolding. Imagine him lying awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to rewrite history in his mind, trying to convince himself you caught him off guard, trying to pretend he was having an off day. But the replay won't lie to him. He knows exactly what happened. You weren't fighting, you weren't competing, you weren't scrambling for approval like he expected. You simply existed with more power than he could perform. And that's what destroyed him. He keeps circling back to the most painful truth. He lost to someone who didn't even break a sweat. Someone who spoke once and dismantled years of his curated reputation. Someone who wasn't chasing the spotlight he depended on to breathe. Imagine a performer on stage doing his biggest routine, and the audience suddenly stops clapping. The silence becomes a mirror, and the mirror becomes torture. That's him now, panicked, confused, exposed, because he wasn't just performing for them, he was performing for you. And the moment you stopped reacting, he lost his script. Here's the question creeping into his thoughts like a shadow he can't outrun. What do I become if I'm not the strongest one anymore? The answer hits him like a punch every time. He becomes ordinary, forgettable, replaceable. You didn't just beat him, chosen one, you erased the illusion he lived in. And the worst part for him, you did it without even trying. Number 8. When his worshippers woke up and realized their God was just a guy. Loyalty built on delusion collapses the moment truth walks into the room. His followers are in full-on identity crisis mode. These people weren't just cheering for him, they built their personalities around being on his side. They memorized his jokes, copied his tone, lived in his shadow like it was a warm little shelter. And now they're staring at the ruins of his reputation, wondering how the hell they got fooled for so long. Some of them are panicking, of course. They're the ones who attack you, not because you did anything wrong, but because admitting you were right forces them to face their own gullibility. They cling to him like a sinking ship, yelling at the person standing safely on the shore. Their anger isn't about you, it's about their embarrassment. Then there's the silent group, the ones who took a step back, eyes narrowing as they replay the last few years in their heads. Every fake win he bragged about, every time he mocked someone, every time he stole credit, every time they blindly applauded. Now they're seeing the puzzle pieces rearrange themselves, and guess who ends up at the center? You. Imagine them watching from the sidelines as the fog lifts, realizing the real threat, the real power, the real presence was the person they overlooked. It's unsettling for them, fascinating, terrifying. They don't know whether to approach you or observe you like a storm forming on the horizon. And you're not chasing a throne, you're not scheming to rise, you're not trying to capitalize on anything. You're simply existing without performance, without masks, and that alone is what shook their entire ecosystem. You didn't want his crown, but somehow, by just being real, you outgrew it. Number 9, when they finally saw the real threat hiding in their blind spot. Some people don't rise out of nowhere. They rise from places you were too arrogant to look. They're still confused, still trying to frame this as some victory you scored over him, like this was about competition, rivalry, or bragging rights. They think you came to dethrone their golden boy. They think you planned it. They think you wanted glory. That's how limited their understanding is. They still believe the world works on his tiny little scale. They can't process anything bigger than that. But the truth they're choking on is simple. This was never about defeating him. This was about revealing you. You weren't hiding. You weren't weak. You weren't behind. You were growing, quietly, deliberately, in places none of them had the depth or awareness to pay attention to, while he danced under bright lights, begging for applause. You were sharpening in the dark, building a gravity so real it didn't need an audience. Imagine this, a seed growing underground, unnoticed, ignored, stepped on 1,000 times, until one day it breaks through the soil and suddenly towers over everything that once overshadowed it. People stare and say, "Where did this come from?" as if it didn't take years of unseen strength to get there. That's you. You didn't appear. You arrived. And here's the question they will never ask out loud, but will whisper internally for the rest of their lives. How long has this power been hiding right next to us? But the question isn't about time, it's about blindness. They were too obsessed with the spotlight to notice the one person who didn't need it. They spent years hyping him, feeding him, polishing his imaginary crown, while you were building something bigger than crowns, spotlights, or applause could ever hold. You weren't trying to win the game they worshipped. You outgrew it. You stepped outside the arena entirely while they were still fighting over seats. Now they've seen you, not the version they invented, not the version they preferred, not the quiet shadow they assumed you were. They saw the real you, the one with presence, clarity, mystery, and a mind sharp enough to slice lies in half without raising your voice. And once someone sees that, they don't unsee it. The illusion they hid behind shattered instantly, and those pieces aren't going back together. Imagine them trying to rebuild their old hierarchy now, trying to put him back on a pedestal that no longer exists. It's like trying to tape together a broken mirror. Every reflection reminds them of the fracture, of the moment everything changed, of the truth you dropped like a quiet atomic bomb. The illusion is dead. Their golden boy myth is over. And the most dangerous thing for them, you didn't even try to take anything from him. You just allowed them to see what was always there. This wasn't a defeat. It was an unveiling. It was the moment the universe said, "Enough pretending." It was the moment you stepped out of the shadows, fully formed, undeniable, unstoppable. They can't unsee you now, chosen one, and they'll never feel safe in their illusions again. Number 11. When the truth turned their hero into a badly written character. Once a mask cracks, every smile behind it looks suspicious. He'll absolutely try to make a comeback. Guys like him always do. Their ego is allergic to reality. He'll walk a little louder, joke a little harder, pretend he's unbothered. He'll recycle the same charm tricks, the same power moves, the same polished persona that used to hypnotize entire rooms. But the magic is dead. The spell broke the moment you revealed what was underneath. And here's the brutal truth. A kingdom doesn't rise again after the crowd watches its king shrink. They saw him small. They saw him exposed. They saw the real man behind the shiny costume. And once the curtain pulls back, once the audience sees the wizard is just a shaky little man pulling levers, the illusion never works again. Imagine this, a balloon popping in the middle of a parade. The sound echoes, the shock hits, and suddenly everyone realizes the float wasn't majestic, it was just air. That's him now. Inflated reputation, punctured by one calm truth. Now watch the shift. His charm, it won't sparkle anymore. It'll look rehearsed, needy, manipulative. His confidence, it'll feel heavy, desperate, like arrogance pretending to breathe. His jokes, they'll hit the ground like stones because everyone remembers the silence after your sentence landed. And you know what's even worse for him? every move he makes now will be judged under a new lens. Every smile will be questioned, every claim will be doubted, every attempt to impress will expose how much he's scrambling. The room won't say it out loud, but the truth already rewrote the script. He wasn't a hero, he was a performance. The aftermath isn't his downfall, it's their awakening, and nothing on earth is stronger than people finally seeing what was real all along. Number 12. When you became the blueprint they'll never recreate. People can copy your style, your words, your moves, but they can't copy your soul. That's why they'll always stay one step behind you. You're turning into something that doesn't fit their vocabulary anymore. They're used to labeling people: leader, follower, confident, insecure, loud, shy. But you're breaking their categories. You're not chasing power, yet rooms adjust around you. You're not begging for attention, yet eyes snap toward you the second you enter. You're not fighting for respect, yet people feel compelled to give it. Real power doesn't scream. It doesn't beg. It doesn't pose. It just exists. And you're existing in a way that scares them. Imagine this: a star shining without trying, while 1,000 cheap flashlights flicker desperately beside it. That's the dynamic now. They're the flashlights. You're the star. They can imitate the glow, but not the source. And here's the question creeping through their minds: how do we become like them? The answer: you can't manufacture something that was built through years of silence, observation, pain, growth, restraint, and clarity. They want the results without the journey. They want the depth without the digging. They want the presence without the evolution. And life doesn't work that way. They'll study you like a mystery. They'll mimic your tone, copy your calm, borrow your phrases, steal your mannerisms. But every attempt will glitch, because authenticity is felt, not performed. And you earned your authenticity the hard way, by surviving moments they would have collapsed under. Imagine someone tracing a masterpiece and wondering why it still looks cheap. That's them. You're the original. They're the photocopies. And the scariest part for your enemies: you're still evolving, still growing, still sharpening. You're becoming uncopyable, untouchable, and undeniably real. And there's no script in existence that prepares them for someone like you. Number 13. When the fake friends and shadow enemies started circling you like moths around a bonfire they can't control. People don't suddenly love you. They love what your power does to their fear. The moment you rose, the opportunists came crawling out of their hiding spots. Funny how they never laughed at your jokes before. Funny how they never defended you. Funny how they never noticed you, until you dismantled the man they thought was untouchable. Now they're all smiling a little too wide, agreeing a little too fast, inserting themselves into your space like they've earned the right. But you see through the performance. You remember every dismissive glance, every ignored message, every time they treated you like background noise. You owe them absolutely nothing. And then there are the other ones, the scared ones, the pretenders whose whole identity cracked when their golden boy fell. They whisper behind screens, invent stories, look for flaws, for cracks, for any weak point they can weaponize. Not because you're dangerous, because you proved they're fragile. If the chosen champion wasn't safe from you, then none of them are. And they know it. Imagine this: a village realizing the hero they worshipped is just a puppet, and the stranger they ignored is the one holding the sword. Panic spreads faster than truth. That's where they are now, scrambling. And the golden boy? Of course he'll come smiling, offering friendly rivalry, pretending he's mature, pretending he's unbothered. It's not peace, it's strategy. A desperate move to disarm you, to fold you back into his script, to make your power smaller by calling it a game. But you've evolved past his manipulation. You decline with a calm that cuts deeper than any insult, because you don't explain yourself to people who only respect power when it hits them in the face. And here's the truth that terrifies them most. You didn't just beat their hero. You ended the era of heroes with nothing behind them. You proved something they never wanted acknowledged. Charisma without substance is noise. Confidence without competence is delusion. Performance without authenticity is theater. You broke the spell. You shattered the myth. And now, no golden boy will ever shine again without being compared to the moment you destroyed the first one effortlessly. Number 14. When you stopped shrinking and started evolving into something they can't measure. Growth isn't loud. It's the moment you stop apologizing for the space you were born to take. You're walking through the same halls, the same rooms, the same world, but you're not the same creature moving through it. Something shifted in you, and everyone feels it. You stopped shrinking yourself to make fragile egos comfortable. You stopped playing dumb to protect someone else's spotlight. You stopped apologizing for existing with depth they can't comprehend. You finally stepped into your real proportions, and suddenly the air changes around you wherever you go. And that's what terrifies them the most. Not that you defeated their champion, not that you exposed him, not even that you did it without trying. It's that you did it by simply being yourself. Imagine this, a caged lion finally remembering it was never meant to purr. That's you now. You're not forcing power. You're not rehearsing confidence. You're not trying to dominate. You're just being, and your being is stronger than their entire performance industry. The room went silent that day because the old rules died right in front of them. Their hierarchy wasn't just shaken, it was declared irrelevant. A new force entered the field, and the punchline is that you're not even playing their game. You evolved beyond it. You outgrew the board while they were still arguing over pawns. So fix your collar, walk forward like the storm you've become. Let them watch from the corners of their failing narrative. Let them whisper theories. Let them scramble to study your every move, because the more they analyze you, the more they expose their own limits. They can't copy evolution. They can't mimic authenticity. They can't fake a transformation born in silence. You were never competing. You were existing. And existence, raw, real, unfiltered, beats performance every single time. And that brings us to the truth they can no longer outrun. You didn't just end an illusion, you rewrote the entire hierarchy by existing as your fullest, sharpest self. Their golden boy fell, the crowd woke up, and you walked out untouched. That's the new reality. And if you felt even a spark of recognition in this journey, chosen one, then honor it. Hit the like button, subscribe, drop 777 in the comments to mark your evolution, and share this with someone who needs to wake up from the myths holding them back. Your rise already started. Let them adjust.